we took a look at Hajime no Ippo, Fighting Spirit, a manga by George Morikawa, started back in 1989 and is still ongoing.
That's wild.
They just put out volume 139 of the tankobon. Absolutely crazy. It's had multiple animes, seasons. Interesting connection, Morgana, is Tsuneo Imahori, who did the music for Trigun, also did the music for Hajime no Ippo.
Oh, I see. I see where this is going.
That is the connection. It is.
It's also a manga
amazing.
that Dark Fox really likes, and that we talked about at the very beginning of this podcast. But, scans no longer. Chapters 1 to 94 are available on K-Manga app. So, and the entire first volume, chapters 1 through 7, are free. So you can read the entire first volume, which is what we did. There's a lot of credits for the translation and the lettering, because I believe this was split up between different folk for the different chapters. It's a lot of chapters. A lot of people with YKS Services, LLC Sky Japan.
You think this was a rush job or something? You think that maybe they're we gotta get these chapters out as soon as possible. Let's split these chapters up to all these different companies.
I think it's the same company, but they split it between different people working together.
Okay.
We can only comment about what we saw in the first volume, but it seems very tight. Very good localization, very good lettering. I'm actually super impressed with the lettering because there's so much sound effects that George Morikawa did, and they're done really well. They're really, really done well. They don't erase the Japanese, they just put the English in the side, but they do it so it's small enough where you can read it, but it doesn't detract from what's happening on the page. So it's done really well. Good translation too. But yeah, Morgana, you have never read Hajime no Ippo, and you have not seen the anime, which is available on Crunchyroll now too. So.
Nope, I was going in totally blind. I knew it was a boxing manga.
It's a boxing manga.
And that was kind of old.
It's probably the boxing manga now. Yeah. There's also, everyone always talks about Tomorrow's Joe or Ashita no Joe as the most famous, manga or boxing manga, a classic manga by Chiba Tetsuya.
Internationally, it's Hajime no Ippo.
It is
100%.
Plus, it's been going it's been going since 1989 and still ongoing.
It's older than I am. Yeah. Not by much, but it is older than I am.
What did you think of Hajime no Ippo, Fighting Spirit?
I really liked it.
Yeah!
Wow, yeah. I'm glad Warren's
Listen, I reread this first volume. It's been a long time since I read it, and I was like, Ippo's design is cute. I forgot George Morikawa changed his art style so much compared to how it is currently. But there's delinquents with pompadours. Takamura is essentially a delinquent boxer.
Fucking love him.
Takamura is Yusuke if he never got hit by that car.
Yep.
He's literally Yusuke.
Little shit.
You got a little weakling character of Ippo, but he has a lot of heart and determination and guts, and it's very old school 80s, 90s sports manga anime aesthetic, but it's drawn really well. I forgot how well this is drawn, even from the first chapter.
Yeah, and so I have this problem with sports manga where I love it conceptually and I read the first couple of volumes and then I'm like, okay, I can't keep up with sports.
Right, because they go on forever.
Forever. And there's no way I could keep up with 130 volumes of this. But it looks so good. I just, I say the same bullshit every week. I have a really soft spot for old manga art, and I don't just mean the style, because I do think you can kind of look at it and tell a little bit what time period it was drawn in, but also just the draftsmanship. it's I unlike Trigun, I knew it was happening in every
The
page.
action is drawn so well.
It's so
in this
well.
manga.
It's so clear. There's time and space are given to actions. You know.
The punches look clean. Sometimes there's a flurry of punches and you can see every punch.
Like the scenes where Ippo is trying to get the leaves, it just looked. I don't know. There's a lot of texture, and I think I'm gonna harp on this. I do all the time. I think some of it is the traditional pen and ink. It does give it a certain amount of depth and texture. That does not mean I think there's anything wrong with digital art. There's a lot of manga that's done with digital art. It looks great.
You just can't get these speed lines on these boxing gloves.
Yeah, I really think it's just a different look, and it's a look that I am very fond of. I really, really love traditional pen and ink manga, and it's hard to come by these days. So seeing something like this is really gratifying. Yeah, no, I actually read this last Sunday. I had some free time. I was just kind of hanging out with my family, and I'm like, let me just read Ippo. It's here. It's easy
And then you
to
burn through those 7 chapters.
And
like
then
no business.
and then I burned through the 7 chapters, and I was like, okay, I do have coins or tickets or whatever bullshit K-manga has. Should I read? I did not read more. I did not read more, but I'm considering it. I'd read more of this. And again, I'm not going to be able to maintain that. I know this about myself, but I was really impressed by how much I enjoyed this. I was really, I thought I'd like it, but I really liked it. I was really and this is the first thing I read of the 3, so it's not like the other 2 were a bummer, coming down from this, but yeah, I kind of burned through it, and I was like, man, it's kind of on a, I don't want to say it's on a different level, but I think there's a reason George Morikawa is so well loved, and I think there's a reason Ippo is so well loved, and I think he really is an incredible artist, an incredible talent.
Even from the first chapter.
Yeah. Yep.
Which is impressive.
Yes. Yeah.
The work is on the page. The work is evident.
Yep. And it is, having read this, it is a sin that we do not have this available in print. It is a sin that this is the first time this has been available in English.
In 2023, we
Crazy.
finally
Yeah.
have Ippo in English.
34 years after its debut. That's madness. This is awesome. And I know, to be honest, sports manga does not sell in English. It does very poorly.
It doesn't.
It does not do well. So I understand not wanting to take that risk. But this is good comics. This is really fucking good comics. And the world is better. The English-speaking world is better for having this available to them now. I believe that.
Morgana,
so hard.
it's like Morgana had alcohol for the first time. It's like, holy shit.
It's so. I look for this experience in manga all the time. And truthfully, the problem is I want to read old stuff, and I've read all the old stuff that's already available, or most of it that's already available in English, or I can't get it because it's long out of print. I want more of this. I want more. I want to be able to see, kind of where a lot of today's artists have gotten their inspiration. Because don't tell me that modern mangaka have not read Ippo and loved Ippo. You know what I mean? There's no chance. This is.
They definitely have.
I want to know, because it's like everybody's going, oh, Junji Ito. Yeah, I love Junji Ito, but I want the stuff that inspired him. He talks about it. He talks about Umez. He talks about Hideshi Hino. And I'm like, okay, why don't we have more Umez and Hideshi Hino in English? Because I want to see that trajectory. I want to see the things that influenced him. I love his work. Where did it come from? You know what I mean? I get it. It's not new and shiny. The Gen Z kids don't care, maybe. Let me tell you something, Gen Z. Gen Alpha. This is comics. This is good. This is good fucking comics. The stuff we read now is also good fucking comics. I mean, again, but this is this makes me feel something different. than
Oh yeah.
the other stuff we read. And I liked the other stuff we read. It's not, I'm not a boomer, I'm a millennial. Proud millennial. Didn't I just say this manga's older than I am?
The Lord. Oh my god.
It's good comics. I'm just telling you it's good comics. And I recommend it.
I mean, maybe the one negative thing I can say is this is very dated because it came out in 1989.
Yeah,
and
but
it's like
that's fun
the first
too.
chapter is like, let's talk about, Mike Tyson.
Yeah, that was wild too because that was before Tyson bit off somebody's ear in the ring, right?
And bad shit. So.
Yeah, he was not great. Fun fact: my family, my parents had a cat who had kittens before I was born, and one of the kittens used to box with the plants, so they named him Tyson. He had these like big paws. Yeah, I believe he died young. Kittens don't always make it. But yeah, his name was Tyson, and so when I think of Mike Tyson, I think of cats first, which is kind of wild.
The funny thing is that the anime tones down the Mike Tyson. He's still mentioned, but in the manga, he's given that tape of Tyson knockouts. In the anime, it was just general boxing highlights, and it shows people watching it. It's very sentimental because they have
copyright reasons. Yeah.
Yeah, but like it shows various boxers, and it shows people like gazing upon it, being like, "Wow, this is a world of strong people. I want to be part of this world." It wasn't just like, check out this fucking guy who could punch your head off. Look at this guy go! Look at this guy go! So like it was, I think the anime had a few small choices but smart choices in like adapting some of the material, and they made it just like more palatable to like modern tastes.
It's funny though. I think boxing really does attract people who could go into a really bad like kind of life. Like,
yeah,
I just watched this. This is really kind of stupid, but I watch these weird history food videos where it tells you like the history of various foods, and there was an episode on the George Foreman grill, and so it gave you the history of George Foreman, and he was a boxer, and it sounds like he was actually a big asshole before he went into boxing. He was a bully, and he was like getting into kind of petty crime. And then he kind of turned that around by going into boxing, and now he's like he has his own church. He's like a born again Christian. Anyway, there's
a lot of characters in Ippo that are exactly like that.
Yeah, well, it was just really interesting because I saw this video after I read Ippo, and I was like, wow, like, Mike Tyson again kind of is a complicated figure. But same idea where he kind of brought himself up from nothing, or brought himself up from like a very rough childhood, and kind of got into boxing. And I think, pugilism kind of allows people with maybe violent tendencies to channel them into something more productive, and better themselves for it. However, anytime I think about boxing, I'm just like, man, you're gonna scramble the fuck out of your brains.
Oh yeah.
Oh yeah, concussions are real.
Was it also? I also now think of that episode of, was it City Hunter, where he like shoots the boxer through the ear into the brain.
Oh yeah, first episode of the anime. Yeah.
Hell yeah.
Jesus.
Yeah.
Crack shot.
Ridiculous. Anyway, Hajime no Ippo was a surprise. Not a, again, I thought I'd like it, but I was surprised by how much I liked it.
I want to point out the two pages I have up when we talked about like the clarity of the art. These 2 pages are almost kind of like a microcosm example, because on the right side of the page we have that panel towards the bottom where it's almost like an iconic superhero shot where Takamura is standing over Ippo. He's all scared, and you have in the foreground all the goons coming after him. Very iconic, blocking of that panel of where the people are standing and where the action is leading to, like kind of like the hero character there. And on the left side of the page, you have the sequence where Takamura does fancy footwork and dodges. He walks through the 3 delinquents and dodges all their punches, and they fall on each other kind of comically. But the way you see, I forget what the head delinquent is called. Spoiler alerts: he becomes like a character. He actually like becomes Umezawa. He becomes a fan of Ippo when he finds out that he's good at boxing, and then he becomes a friend of Ippo when he kind of tries to help him out. And he really is like the sweetest character in the series, because like a big part of like a big recurring thing in his character arc is that he feels super guilty for bullying Ippo and for saying terrible shit about him and his family, and he always wants to apologize, but he has that like toxic masculinity in him that like it's really embarrassing and hard for him to bring himself just talk about this and just full on approach that part of him, that part of his past. And Ippo is such a pure boy that Ippo just accepts him. He forgot about the bullying. He doesn't care about the bullying. He knows he's like a good boy. So he's always trying to apologize, and he hates himself. He hates himself almost for not being able to apologize than the bullying. And he's like one of my favorite characters in the story. But sorry, I got sidetracked because I like the character so much. In the top right, you see him cocking his fist, and then you see Takamura. They draw him with the whole like that technique where he's getting drawn lighter with like less thick lines because he's starting to move faster. It shows him underneath his fist throw. Then they have the profile shot, the wide shot where you can see the whole body of he's now behind the guy, the first punch, and the two other guys are coming after him, and then it's followed by a panel where the two guys are past the full swing. And I didn't notice it the first time I read it, but there is like a whoosh, like squiggly line that's supposed to be Takamura that went between them. And then in the bottom of the page, you have the panel where he's past all three of the delinquents, and they're behind him, eating shit on the floor because he just fucking footworked his way through them and didn't get touched. He didn't hit them. He didn't do anything. He just walked through them and dodged all their punches. And of course, Takamura is like being like cocky and just like, breathing hard out of his nose, like he just dealt with something.
See,
it's
Naito should have been taking notes from George Morikawa instead of Todd McFarlane.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, but then that wouldn't be the belt buckles.
That's probably everybody could be better served by taking a page out of Ippo instead of a page out of Cable. Anyway, so
I will say in this first chapter, Darfox, Takamura challenges Ippo to grab 10 leaves, right? Mm-hmm. It's like the first task that he ever does with boxing, and he spends all day and night doing it. It's one of the things that you've mentioned that you hate about like the main character from like Welcome to the Ballroom.
Okay, I will.
And also he's like suddenly like he has a good build and he's a heavy puncher even though he hasn't done any sports, just because he helps out his mom at the fishing boat.
Yeah, this is the blueprint, though. This is the blueprint that everybody follows. Like,
so this is forgiven because this is the original.
Yeah.
Also, okay, there's definitely a little bit of like Ippo's a special snowflake, but I appreciate that at least he gets his physique and his power from something, as opposed to just being like naturally good at it. You know what I mean? Like he does a lot of helping out around. Like there are reasons why he is suited to boxing. So there's a certain amount of sense there. But I also am usually like, oh look, this guy is just naturally talented. Great,
So one of the things that surprised me, Morgana, that like I wasn't dreading this conversation because I don't dread this podcast, but I was like a little bit bummed out when I reread Ippo, because the first three the first three or so chapters is him leading up, and then he fights Miyata, who's
boxing
like
Sasuke.
Yeah, the Sasuke of the series, the rival character.
Yeah, he is Sasuke.
Yeah. So he fights Miyata in that sparring match that he just gets pushed into because it's the story. They have to make it snappy and interesting. So he gets pushed into that story, and then right after that, it's just 4 more chapters of Ippo
training montage.
Like they really go deep, and I feel like in the anime this stuff is accelerated a lot. Maybe that was one episode in the anime, but reading it in the chapters, it really felt like the pace slowed down completely. And at this point, you're in the boxing. He's talking about shadow boxing. He's talking about catching up to somebody's shadow,
Throwing
visualizing.
an uppercut.
Yeah, like it's really going into the nitty gritty of boxing, and like it's not that the characters take a step back in the sense that like Ippo is the character, and right now Ippo all Ippo is I want to be stronger, aka I want to be a boxer. Like they're the same thing. So like the character's still there. It's a good manga, so the character's still there. But man, it's really thick, and as I was reading it, I was kind of surprised that it was that thick, and I was like, this will not surprise me if this turns off Morgana. Like it's just a little bit too much. So I'm happy that you were able to read it.
Seamus has no patience for.
Yeah.
Right. Yeah, I guess I'm used to a certain amount of that, and I read it pretty fast, so I don't really. And again, I read it almost a week ago now. The things I took away from it were how good it looked and how fun it was. I didn't really feel bogged down very much. I also knew that this like weirdo bromance was gonna start, so I kept waiting for that shoe to drop. This like we're rivals, but also we're biffles. Like, and
Yeah,
you see
it's good. It's good sports rivalry. It's not quite as sweet and positive as something like Yomish Pedal, where all the
Sure.
characters are just like bros. But
you kind of see it here where Miyata comes in and helps him buy new shoes. I was like, this is the shit I was waiting for. These like tough, dumbass teenagers being like, no, you gotta. I'm gonna show affection through obvious, like I don't know, like it was cute. It's cute and I liked it.
I also like how Takamura, like during this training stuff at the end of, towards the end of this first volume, Takamura's like constantly like, now it's my turn to step in. He's always like trying to help, and then the coach, Kamogawa, stops him, and he's like, go train! And he's like, oh damn it! It happens like every chapter. It's so funny.
I also want to say, and this is another complaint that I have about. There's a complaint I have about some modern manga that this does not apply to. Everybody's face looks distinct in this manga.
Yeah.
There are a lot of manga, shonen manga certainly, with some same face problems. Like every single woman in One Piece. It's exactly the same with a different wig. You know what I mean? Everybody looks distinct, and they look three-dimensional. Like, looking at these pages that Dar has up right now, like, these are, like, the shading, the detail, like Ippo's arms are, like, that is a three-dimensional arm. And that, like, I Did It panel where he's, like, holding all those, like, his other arm is up on his hand is up on his head. You can see, like, the muscles in his, like, elbow, and it's just, like, I don't know. There's Morikawa knows what he's doing. He's a real artist. You really, yeah.
I think that work, that ability, is necessary for this kind of manga, because a different kind of manga, you could dress people up in costumes, and this one guy is really identifiable because he has a big nail coming out of his right shoulder. In this manga, the majority of this manga is going to be in a boxing ring with two naked guys with boxing gloves. And you could identify them instantly by their build, and it's not like it's a One Piece build where somebody is a skinny twig, another one is a round ball. No, these all look like human beings, but they have different builds. One is lankier, one is taller, one has longer arms, one has longer reach, and then their faces, and their hair is a big part of it too. But like their faces, like the like this manga is so effective. Because of the way Morikawa is able to project the character in the character design. He cannot rely on costumes. He cannot rely purely on hairstyles because of the nature of being a boxing manga. So these skills that he has that you pointed out, like they made the manga, where else it would have broken if he didn't have them.
Yeah.
Yeah,
definitely.
Yeah, I'm glad you brought that up because like it cannot be like understated how good those bits are.
I sent you both a link to one of the newest chapters. I'm talking chapter 1437.
God damn,
Christ.
homie.
But I want you to kind of just look at that. And Dar, it's up to you if you want to bring this up or not.
Yo, is
but-
that Mashiba?
Yes.
Yo, what?
Yeah, but I don't know if like you can Morgana. I want you to look at the evolution of like George Morikawa's art style.
This is like wow. I mean, it's still great. It still looks great. It's so different.
It's like
Yep.
blockier. It's blockier and
Yeah.
sharper.
A little lankier with the characters, obviously.
I will admit I don't like it as much as the older art. I still think it looks really great. I mean, I'm not. It's definitely impressive, and again, the movement is incredible. But I'm an old sap who wants.
give that 80s manga art to Morgana.
Yeah, please. No,
I
I mean this looks great too, though.
I have to imagine it's one of those things where he just had to adapt the art style and also the way he probably works with assistants. The assistants have to draw a certain way. I think it is an unfortunate situation where maybe a little bit of his uniqueness is shaved. The unique corners is shaved off until you have a little bit of a more process style that you can push out easier. Because this guy, excuse me for being rude, is old. How old is George Morikawa? That guy's getting
I
up there.
believe, I think he's in his 60s at this
That
point,
guy's old.
or he's
Yeah.
pushing 60 for sure.
Yeah, he would have to be. I mean, like if he was in his 20s in '89.
Some mangaka die in your 60s. Please,
I know.
I shouldn't say that because it's very.
Please.
It's very
he was born
macabre.
in 1966.
Okay, so he's 57 then.
Yeah, he's
My-
close to 60.
My mom was born in '65, and she's turning 58 in a couple weeks. So
Can I tell you both a interesting fact about Hajime no Ippo at the beginning?
Yes, please.
I'm pretty sure this is confirmed, so I'm pretty sure this is correct. Because George Morikawa talked about this on Twitter. His Twitter, man. I'll mention something else in a second, but
I know what you're gonna mention.
so George Morikawa, I'm pretty sure he mentioned this because one of the first people that helped him draw Hajime no Ippo at the beginning, when he didn't have any assistance and he just needed help, was Kentaro Miura, the creator of Berserk. George Morikawa was very, very torn up after the death of Kentaro Miura. And I didn't know this connection, but he wrote this entire story on Twitter talking about how he was doing a manga project. I'm pretty sure it was Ippo. And he had a deadline. At the time, Kentaro Miura was just a college student, and he just came and helped him. And was talking to him about, I have this idea for this swordsman with a giant sword, which became Berserk.
There's royalty in these lines. Manga royalty.
George Morikawa is an interesting man. He is a giant of the manga industry. And lots of rumors. I don't know if Morgana remembers an old-ass story when I was talking about Hajime no Ippo possibly getting canceled or problems because he didn't want to, do a digital edition of Hajime no Ippo with the editors, and he wrote in like the post-credit of of a magazine once. It's like, this editor is like, you better watch out, in a haiku or something. This man, he kind of can't stop himself from like putting his foot in his mouth a little. Last month he was he almost got canceled on Twitter.
Yeah, he created a shitstorm for himself.
Yeah, it's pretty bad. I'll tell the story real quick, but he put out a tweet because he got a email, I think, a message from like a fan of Hajime no Ippo from a foreign country, so outside of Japan, who had a bunch of like memorabilia of Ippo stuff, but in the center was a illustration. He didn't do it. It was by someone on the anime staff that did it.
It was signed. It was a signed.
Yeah, it was
illustration.
signed. So it's like he didn't out the animator, but he finished that tweet by saying, "If you're in the business, you should follow the rules." And that turned into a whole thing where people were like, are you saying anime staff aren't allowed to, make like a secondary like product based on like what they've already worked on? And it became this entire thing.
People
Which was not his original message. So yeah, that blew up and became a whole thing.
Well, it's an interesting standard because, like, think of just fan culture in America and how much commissions people have for fan work and stuff like that, and they charge for part of what Morikawa was disappointed at is that the fan party paid money for that.
And this was a work from over 10 years ago, and so he was kind of saying like, if this is from 10 years ago, there's a chance this guy has been doing it for like a decade.
And it's basically it should be Morikawa's prerogative who gets signed art off of his characters kind of thing. Like it basically like in Japan, like the ownership of like the manga is a lot more ironclad compared to the States and stuff like that.
Yeah, but like in Japan, there's like doujinshi and stuff, so a lot of people were chiming in about like, well, what does it mean for doujinshi and stuff like that.
Yeah, my approach, and I don't know if this is, I don't know if this is right, morally correct entirely, but like when you buy fan art or when you buy artwork from somebody that's not their original creation, or you do a commission, right? You ask for a commission of a character. My kind of way of thinking about it is less that you're paying for the IP than you're paying for the labor, the physical labor of the artist to make the thing. Obviously, I don't condone wholesale, like, taking other people's characters and making, but like you said, like, doujinshi is kind of a gray area too, right? Like, I'm not necessarily opposed to doujinshi.
Yeah, it's a gray area. Like basically,
Yeah.
George Morikawa's point about like follow the rules was this. He was trying to say this person should have asked him, just like informed him that this is what he was doing, and he was never asked about it, and that's what he was upset about.
Which seems a little naive. It's different in Japan, I assume. It's different for professionals working in the manga and anime business. But it does seem kind of naive that somebody would ask, hey, can I, draw this picture of Ippo and sign it and sell it to a fan kind of thing?
Well, like he knew this person through like working on the anime stuff, so
they had a professional relationship, so he would have accepted that.
Yeah. But that, of course, that blew out of proportion. Everybody was like, "Were you saying, George Morikawa, like we're not allowed to do this? Isn't that unfair?" So yeah.
It's interesting, sometimes some creators are much more sensitive about how their work is interpreted and used by fans or others, like
outside of their control. Yeah, and it's very
control.
clear. George Morikawa is the type of person who like wants to be in control of his stuff.
Yeah, and
it's his right.
Yeah, I have mixed feelings about it though too, because there's and I don't disagree with him necessarily, but I do think when you make a work that affects other people, you have to expect a certain amount of, they say, what is it? Imitation is the fondest form of flattery or whatever. You have to expect a certain amount that people are going to want to surround themselves with this thing, right? If you touch somebody with, like I remember reading Anne Rice, the author of Vampire Lestat and Interview with the Vampire and all those. I remember she made a statement about how she didn't like fan fiction. And the reason was not, it's because they're her characters, it's her world, it's her IP, and she owns it, and and it's like, okay, fan fiction writers are not making any money off of this. They're enjoying the thing that you made. It's really important to them, so they are expanding on it. And that kind of sensitivity about it is like, I think, like Darv was saying, it's a little naive. It's naive to expect that when people consume something, they're not going to want to then, if it touched them, if it meant something to them, they're going to want to keep thinking about it, keep talking about it, I do think I do think, especially in this case, Morikawa had a professional relationship with this person. Yeah, it was not great that he just went ahead and or they just went ahead and did this without discussing with him. But like, would he have done the same thing if it had been just like fan art from like a random artist he didn't know? You know what I mean? I wonder about that. There are some creators, and it's not just in Japan, but there's some creators who want to hold real tight to their work, and it's like, you shouldn't be putting out work if you're not. I mean, I feel to a degree that making art is sharing, is a kind of sharing. You know what I mean? You're putting yourself out there, and in that sense, it can be very. It can feel very complicated or very uncomfortable to see other people taking your stuff or working with your stuff because it is so personal. But I think for other people, it gets very personal too.
Yeah,
I think. Go ahead.
I think the best philosophy is for an artist, if they can have it, is they did their part. Now it belongs to whoever cares to engage with their art. It's like it left them to. For example, I think the most famous example is like all the Kirk Spock / fiction is like the birth of like / fiction is the Kirk and Spock stuff, and Leonard Nimoy and William Shatner have said no, like they're not gay. The whole point of it was that this was showing a future where men can be like super affectionate towards each other, and it isn't poo-poo. Like it basically trying to create a context of masculinity without toxicity. But we don't live in that world. We live in our world where we see that tenderness, and people see a relationship, and it wasn't, even though it was quote unquote wrong in the sense that none of the people involved with the production of it were thinking it that way. It is practically canon the way people feel about Kirk and Spock, and just like the tenderness, and I don't think there's anything wrong with that because we live in our world, we don't live in their world. And in our world, Kirk and Spock have a thing going on,
And also at the time, so I think what they were going for is great. This idea that you can be affectionate toward other men without it being construed as romantic or sexual. I think that is an important thing. But there is also filling the niche of not enough queer material available in fiction, and honestly, most of the people who are writing that were probably, women anyway. It's not like it's being written by gay men for gay men, but that's also a discussion worth having. Like you found romance here because there's a lack of, gay male romance available in fiction, so we kind of have to make it for ourselves. And that's like 99% of male fanfic based on shonen manga on the internet. Is like, there are no good female characters, there's not enough gay shit here, let's just put this vague gayness in fiction and make it work.
One thing I was going to mention was I feel like with Japanese society, when they look at like secondary like works, especially when they're consumer products like doujinshi, like kind of the end all be all is like the creators themselves. So if George Morikawa is putting out there that he doesn't want those happening, then pretty much, the people making those should respect his opinion.
Yes.
And what he wants. I remember, Dar, you might remember this. This was like a couple years back, but it might have been when the third new Evangelion movie was coming out. Mm-hmm. The Evangelion people were like, we're not allowing any creation of secondary like content based on Evangelion right now.
I do vaguely remember that, yeah.
It was right before one of the comic markets were going, like the big, like comic cat.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
It was like a week before it, and like people had already submitted their, works. They had already printed like hundreds of copies of like a new Eva book.
People
And
already
then
drew
suddenly-
it. People already beat off to it. It's all like the horse left the stable.
And like the Evangelion people were like, it's not allowed, and it sucked, and people were mad, but they respected what they wanted, so they had to eat that loss, and that seems like something that just kind of comes with the territory of if you're making like secondary like creations.
Yeah, and I do think it is important to do right. If you love a work that somebody has made and they are specifically asking you, please don't do this.
You should respect that.
You should respect that. That's why we don't read scans anymore. There's a whole. If the people who are making the thing are asking you nicely, please don't do the thing or do this thing instead, like, just if you care, then maybe that's the way to go. Otherwise, you're a fake fan.
Moving away from this and getting back to the manga itself, I want to say that the version up on K-Manga, this digital edition, is some of the cleanest fucking digital manga I've ever seen in my life. It looks so tight. There's no mistakes in like the page spreads. Everything is lined up perfectly.
George Morikawa was breathing down their necks the whole time, being like, "You better make this good."
It's one of the reasons he refused to do digital until they could prove to him that they could like make sure that the quality was up to his, what he wanted. And we've read some digital manga on this podcast that looks like just downright bad, but this is some clean looking shit. Every line, every like ink draw, every speed line, so clear. Probably another reason why Morgana was like, this looks great.
Yeah. Yeah, this is the only thing I've read on K-Manga so far, and I'm very impressed. I mean, their whole system is bullshit, but the comic looks good, so that's something in their favor.
It's kind of sad that this kind of care isn't taken with every manga. This should be the standard for every manga, and it just wasn't the case because a lot of especially in the early days of like making digital versions of manga, they were handed off to like a third party to do, and some of them did not do a great job.
Yeah, and I will say, I think a big problem we have now as an industry is that we're publishing too many manga. So there's deadlines, and you kind of have to turn around a product as, there's a demand, so I feel like we live in a very rich time. There's so much manga. There's too much manga to read. There's so much. But at that kind of comes a certain cost too. Like, A, you can never read it all, and B, is it all going to be of high quality as it could and should be? Or is it going to be, we got to get this turned around to get out as fast as possible, because if we don't get this chapter out, fans will go read the scan instead of reading the official English edition. You know what I mean? So, yeah, it's we live in complicated and turbulent times.
Well, we can always tell people to go read Hajime no Ippo, Fighting Spirit, only if they live in U.S.
Sorry, guys.
I'm sorry.
Sorry,
Vicky
Chris.
Dalton can't read this. Chris from Canada can't read this.
Tyler can't read this.
I understand their anger.
Yes, you're missing out on a classic, which is a shame. But yeah, we've talked a lot. Morgana, anything else you want to mention about Hajime no Ippo?
It's rad.
Radical.
Nice.
Yep. That's it.
Darfox, you want to mention anything else about revisiting Ippo?
No, the only thing I want to say is I don't expect Morgana to catch up to the manga or anything like that. But if you do like the Ippo Jones, consider the anime because it's not finished either, and it's plenty long. But it might be something you could do with James. Depends.
Mm-hmm.
And the music and the voice acting, like, is also iconic. Like all like the Ippo voices. Oh, and you didn't get to see Aoki or Tamura. Was it Tamura? Was that the other one's name?
Oh, Kimura and
Kimura.
yeah, Aoki.
Yeah, Kimura. So Kimura and Aoki.
Tweedledee and Tweedledum.
Yes, they're like other side characters, but they're constantly featured. They're kind of like B-list boxers, and you see them like try their best to go up the ranks because Takamura and Ippo become kind of like superstars. Like they're really good at boxing. They're like the winners, right? But part of the same gym is Aoki and Kimura. And they're not as good, but damn, they got
on the gut grind, man.
They got
They're on
that grit. They got a really funny backstory. You see them, grow. You see them get better. It feels like you know how damn, my brain is fried. I'm sorry.
We've been going for a long time.
Yeah. I'm sorry. I'm trying to wrap this up so that we don't go even longer. But clearly I could keep on talking forever about this stuff. Fucking Kurobara. I can't believe I forgot Kurobara's name. Please forgive me.
Oh my word.
Lord in Jesus Christ. So, Kurobara has his delinquent friends that they're not featured too heavily. They come up every once in a while, but like they're really good characters and they're really fun. This manga gives those characters the time of day or the spotlight because granted this manga's been going on for 18,000 years, so they have the time. You know, so like
I'm not that old.
Yeah. Yeah.
Okay, I mean, yeah, that's a great point. Actually, that connects to like my one con about Hajime no Ippo, and this has nothing to do with the beginning because the beginning is amazing. It's gone too long, and it's slowed way the fuck down.
Well,
and this is another series where I'm like, I really hope George Morikawa lives to finish this.
Yeah. It's macabre to think that, but I totally understand. It's a legit.
He's still young. 57 isn't that old.
It really isn't that old. Objectively
It's
speaking,
not.
it
It
isn't
is
that old.
It is when you work in manga, apparently. Although he seems to be doing okay. I mean, he's obviously got
His output
got
has
a
slowed down a
system.
lot.
Yeah, that's fair.
He's also, I think he owns a boxing gym, and he's like
He owns a boxing gym. He does a bunch of things. He has a bunch of hobbies. He recently got into building Gundam because he really got into G Gundam.
It's just very cute. Like
It's
this.
adorable.
He likes mahjong. He likes fishing. I mean, he puts everything he does in Hajime no Ippo. So
You need that.
you know,
input
Osamu
for that
Tezuka
output.
passed away at 60. So
Yeah, but Tezuka's a madman.
he was a madman who overworked himself to death. Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, Morikawa does he do anything else? Does he work on any other manga, or is this his thing?
Do you know what's funny? George Morikawa refuses to acknowledge any manga he's drawn before Hajime no Ippo, even though he's drawn some things. He always says, this is the first manga I've ever drawn, and my only manga.
So if
He is
this
all in.
That's, I mean, fair. If this is the only thing he's working on, not that, but that, Tezuka is working on 50 million projects, and also running a studio, and also doing the anime thing, and also not sleeping, probably. Despite the fact that he used to be a doctor, he had terrible health, so, and genetics probably weren't in his favor either.
I get the impression that if Tezuka went to a mahjong parlor to have a fun evening drinking and like playing mahjong, he would like lash himself like the next day, like I wasn't drawing manga that evening, and he was just like break his back up in like repentance.
George Morikawa does smoke. I do know this.
Yeah, that's like all of those guys, right?
He's of that era.
Yeah.
And smoking, I mean, when I went to Japan in 2007, there was still a lot of smoking.
There is.
Yeah, it's a very, very common, it's way less common in the States now. They're gonna go those stupid vapes. I would almost rather people smoke cigarettes, frankly. Get cancer the dignified way, like, come on. Dude, tutti fruity cancer. your tutti frutti vape juice.
So 2 things I want to mention before we wrap up our Hajime no Ippo talk. Dark Fox mentioned the anime, which is available on Crunchyroll. That first season is all there. It's a lot of episodes, that first season. It's like
50,
70. No, it's 75.
Yeah,
yeah.
It's a lot,
so it's a lot. But it covers like the first arc of Ippo to completion, so it is very worth it.
It's a journey, yeah. It's a journey, and it's
Plus,
kind of
you get Tsuneo Umahori's awesome music.
Oh my god.
The soundtrack to that anime is fantastic. It might be better than Trigun in some tracks. It is so good.
It is fantastic, yeah.
Also, you haven't lived unless you've heard like a boxing punch followed by a jet engine sound.
Everybody's boxing punches just have
Roar!
all the force, yeah.
It's so good.
Amazing.
What's the other thing I was going to mention about Hajime no Ippo? I mentioned the anime. Talked about the manga. I talked about George Morikawa. Shit, there was one more thing I needed to mention. Crap. Dark Fox vamp for a second while I rethink.
I want to suck your blood.
Start eating more Pocky. Open up that strawberry.
No, I think I have 2 left for this, for the regular chocolate, the banana Pocky thing. Here's a Pocky.
Scramble for the Pocky.
So, I guess one negative that I think would not surprise you, Morgana, is that Ippo is very light on the women characters.
Yeah, I'm not surprised.
There is a love interest, a character that gets introduced. She's pretty, like, she's not a bad character, just not a lot going along with her. She's cute. Ippo likes her. She likes Ippo. They're both too like cutesy and shy to approach each other. There is a boxing reporter who's like a foxy career lady. She's like cool and sexy. Not in a like, super exploitative way, but she's cool and sexy. There is a nurse character that like a lot of people at the gym know, and she's also like sexy, but not in a super exploitative way. But people like the nurse because she's like, oh my god, I get to hang out with the nurse. Or actually, she might be an actual doctor.
Are you talking about Aoki's girlfriend?
No. I'm talking about the girl that.
Oh, right, the doctor. Yeah, you're talking about the doctor.
Yeah, she wasn't a nurse. Aoki's
glasses.
girlfriend is a whole other thing. She's probably the best female character in the fucking manga, bro.
But she's a joke character.
Yeah.
She is purposely drawn ugly.
But is she ugly though? Like, she might be the most beautiful one of all, though. You know what I'm saying?
She's beautiful in the heart. She's a really nice person and very supportive.
Damn.
You mentioned Ippo's love interest. She's become a comedy character at this point in the current manga.
Oh, good.
Yeah, well, she didn't have that much going on to begin with. Like, she's related to some of the other characters, but like, or whatever. And then later on, they introduce another character, a young gun, a young boxer, and he has a sister, and she kind of becomes another character that's kind of floating around. There really is like, in how many years this manga has been running? There's like 4 female characters, and they're like they're really slim,
paper thin. Yeah.
Yeah. So, obvious problem with the manga, obvious critique of the manga. A lot of mangas have it. Doesn't really, just because other manga has this problem doesn't mean that this manga should have the problem. But that is a big blind spot in this manga.
All right, I'm not gonna remember what the second thing was, so it's okay. We've been going long enough. We should end.
Hey, if you like that clip, you can join us every single Saturday where we record our brand new episodes. Follow our channel so you know when we schedule our episodes. Also follow our social media accounts. We are at Manga Mac Podcast. Thanks for watching, and don't be afraid to drop a comment and suggest manga we could read.